Captain Marcus Reed stared at the red sky through the cracked window of his transport ship. The air outside was poison now. Had been for 3 years. The last clean breath of Earth's atmosphere was just a memory, like so many other things that used to make their world beautiful. He turned away from the window and walked through the narrow corridor of the refugee transport. Hundreds of people sat in cramped seats, clutching small bags that held everything they owned. Children cried. Parents whispered comfort that even they did not believe. These were the lucky ones. They had seats on a ship leaving Earth. Dr. Elena. Vasquez met him at the medical bay door. Her face was tired. Dark circles surrounded her eyes. She had been working without sleep for days, checking every refugee before they boarded the ships. "How many more can we take today?" Marcus asked. Elena looked at her tablet. "Maybe 200. The life support systems are already pushed to their limits." "Any more? And we risk everyone." Marcus nodded. It was never enough. Outside the spaceport, millions more waited in the evacuation camps. The math was simple and terrible. They had ships for maybe 10% of the people who needed to leave. Admiral James Crawford's voice came through the ship's speakers. "All transport captains report to the command center immediately." Marcus made his way to the front of the ship where other captains had gathered. Crawford stood before a large screen showing Earth from space. The planet looked sick. Brown clouds covered most of the surface. The ice caps had melted. The oceans were rising. "The situation has changed," Crawford said. "Our long-range sensors have detected ships approaching Earth. Large ones. They are not human." The room went silent. First contact. After all these years of searching the stars for other life, they had found humanity. Or rather, they had found humanity dying. "Are they hostile?" asked Captain Lisa Park, commander of the cargo transport New Hope. "We don't know," Crawford replied. "They haven't responded to our communication attempts, but their ships are massive, much bigger than anything we have." Marcus felt his heart sink. If these aliens were hostile, humanity's last days would be even shorter than expected. If they were peaceful, maybe they would simply watch as Earth's children died in the cold of space. The alien ships appeared on the horizon 3 hours later. Marcus watched from the observation deck as 5 enormous vessels descended through Earth's poisoned atmosphere. They were beautiful in a way that human ships were not. Smooth curves instead of sharp angles. Their hulls seemed to shimmer with colors that changed as they moved. The ship settled into orbit above the evacuation zone. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then Crawford's voice came over the speakers again. "We are receiving a transmission. They are speaking to us." The voice that came through the speakers was soft and musical. The words were in English, though the accent was strange. "People of Earth, we are the Kalari. We have traveled far to reach you. We know of your world's dying. We wish to help." Dr. Patricia Wells, Earth's chief scientist, stood in the command center recording everything. She had insisted that someone document this moment. Whatever happened next, humanity would remember it. "We offer food, medicine, and shelter for your people," the alien voice continued. "We ask for nothing in return. Your suffering calls to us across the stars." Admiral Crawford stepped forward to the communication panel. His voice shook slightly. As he spoke, "This is Admiral Crawford of the Earth Defense Force. We accept your offer. Our people are dying. We need help." The alien ships opened their cargo bays. Smaller vessels flew out, heading toward the refugee camps. Marcus watched through his ship's cameras as the alien craft landed near the evacuation sites. The beings that emerged were tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. They moved with grace and purpose. Lisa Park was among the first humans to meet them face to face. She later described the moment in her report. The Kalari leader approached her slowly, holding what looked like a medical scanner. "Your people are sick from the poison in your air," the alien said. "We have medicine that will help. May we treat them?" Lisa nodded, not trusting her voice to work. Within minutes, Kalari medics were moving through the refugee camps. They gave injections that cleared the poison from human lungs. They distributed food that tasted better than anything the survivors had eaten in months. But the greatest gift came when the Kalari leader met with Admiral Crawford privately. Dr. Wells was there to record the conversation. "Your world cannot support your people much longer," the alien said. "We know of 3 worlds that could become new homes for humanity. The journey will be long, but these planets can sustain your species." Crawford stared at the data pad the alien had given him. Star charts, planetary surveys, information that would have taken humanity centuries to gather on their own. "Why are you helping us?" Crawford asked. "What do you want in return?" The Kalari leader tilted its head as if the question confused them. "Your people suffer. We can ease that suffering. Is this not reason enough?" Over the following weeks, the Kalari ships worked alongside human vessels to evacuate Earth. They provided supplies, medical care, and hope. They shared their technology freely, teaching human engineers how to modify their ships for the long journey to new worlds. Captain Tobias Grant led the first diplomatic mission to the main Kalari vessel. He found the aliens living in simple quarters, eating basic food, giving up their own comfort to help humanity. When he asked why they had come so far to help strangers, the Kalari leader gave the same answer. "Suffering calls across the stars. Those who can help should help." Dr. Patricia Wells made sure to record every act of kindness, every moment of generosity. She created detailed files about each Kalari individual who helped save human lives. Their names, their actions, their gifts to humanity. "We must never forget this," she told Admiral Crawford. "Whatever happens to us in the stars, we must remember who saved us when our world was dying." The last human ship left Earth 6 months after the Kalari arrived. As Marcus Reed piloted his transport toward the coordinates of New Haven, their first colony world, he looked back at the dying planet that had been humanity's home. The Kalari ships followed at a distance, protecting the human fleet on its journey to the stars. They had given everything to save a species they had never met before. They had asked for nothing in return. Marcus made a promise to himself as Earth disappeared behind them. Humanity would remember this debt. They would honor the beings who had reached across the galaxy to save them from extinction. The journey to New Haven would take 8 months. During that long voyage, every human child would learn about the Kalari. They would learn their names, their language, and the story of their kindness. Humanity was leaving home, but they were not leaving alone. They carried with them the memory of those who had cared enough to save them. That memory would grow into something the galaxy had never seen before. But that was still to come. For now, the human fleet sailed through the darkness between stars, following the star charts given by alien hands, carrying the seeds of the greatest gratitude the universe would ever know. Governor Daniel Foster stood on the balcony of the New Haven Capitol building and watched the sun rise over humanity's first colony world. 15 years had passed since the last ships left Earth. 15 years since the Kalari had saved them from extinction. The view before him showed a city that had grown from nothing. Simple metal buildings stretched across the valley floor. Gardens filled with earth vegetables grew alongside strange alien plants that the Kalari had taught them to cultivate. Children played in the streets, speaking both English and Kalari, with equal ease. Daniel had been just a refugee engineer when they first landed. Now he governed 50,000 humans on a world that should have killed them all. The air was thin, the soil was poor, the weather was harsh, but they had survived because the Kalari had taught them how. Professor Rachel Turner entered the balcony carrying a thick folder of documents. She was the colony's chief historian, and her job was to make sure humanity never forgot how they had gotten here. "The memorial ceremony is ready," she said. "Every school in the colony will participate today." Today marked exactly 15 years since first contact with the Kalari. Every year on this day, humans across the 3 colony worlds stopped their work to remember. Children would recite the names of the Kalari who had saved them. Adults would share stories of kindness from those early days. "How many Kalari names do the children know now?" Daniel asked. Rachel smiled. "Over 300. They learn 10 new ones each year. Some of the older students can speak basic Kalari better than I can." Daniel nodded with satisfaction. Every human child learned the Kalari language as part of their basic education. It was required by colonial law. No human would grow up ignorant of the beings who had given them life. Engineer Tom Mitchell approached them from inside the building. His clothes were dirty from working in the northern construction zone. New Haven was expanding rapidly as more families started having children. "Governor, we have received a message from the Kalari trade ship," Tom said. "Captain Vell wishes to speak with you privately." Daniel frowned. Captain Vell commanded the only Kalari ship that still visited their system regularly. The other Kalari vessels had returned to their own space years ago, confident that humanity could survive on their own. Did he say what this was about? No. "Sir," but he seemed concerned about something. Daniel made his way to the communication center, where Captain Vell's image appeared on the main screen. The Kalari looked tired. His usually bright blue skin seemed dull, and his large eyes showed worry. "Governor Foster," Vell said in his musical voice, "I bring troubling news from Kalari space." "What has happened, my friend?" Vell paused as if choosing his words carefully. "Pirates have disrupted our trade routes. The Brothan raiders attack our merchant ships and steal their cargo. Many Kalari settlements are struggling without supplies." Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. The Kalari were peaceful traders. They had no warships to defend themselves against raiders. Their entire society was built on helping others, not fighting. "How bad is the situation?" Daniel asked. 3 of our colony worlds have lost contact with the home world. Food shipments cannot reach them safely. The Brothan demand tribute that we cannot pay." Daniel thought quickly. New Haven had grown strong over the years. Their factories produced goods that other colonies wanted. Their farms grew more food than they needed. They had built a small fleet of cargo ships for trade with the other human settlements. "Captain Vell, what can we do to help?" The Kalari's eyes widened with surprise. "Help? Governor, your people have struggles of your own. We could not ask you to risk yourselves for us." "You saved us when our world was dying," Daniel said firmly. "You asked nothing in return. Now you need help, and we will give it." Ambassador Kate Sullivan had been listening from her station nearby. She was the human liaison to the Kalari trade mission. Her job was to coordinate the ongoing relationship between their species. "Governor," Kate said quietly, "we would need approval from the other colonies. This is a major decision." "Then call an emergency session of the Colonial Council," Daniel ordered. Today, within hours, representatives from all 3 human colony worlds appeared on communication screens in the council chamber. Governor Lisa Park from New Eden, Administrator Paul Martinez from Liberty Station, and dozens of other leaders joined the discussion. Daniel explained the situation facing the Kalari. He proposed that humanity should help defend their benefactors. From the pirate attacks, the debate was swift and one-sided. "The Kalari saved our entire species," Governor Park said. "Of course we must help them." "My colony will contribute whatever resources we can," Administrator Martinez added. "We owe them our lives." The vote was unanimous. Every human settlement would contribute ships, supplies, and volunteers to help the Kalari against the Brothan raiders. Tom Mitchell took charge of organizing the relief effort. Within weeks, human cargo ships loaded with food and medical supplies were heading toward Kalari space. Human engineers offered to upgrade Kalari vessels with better shields and faster engines. Dr. Amanda Cooper, New Haven's leading scientist, began working with Kalari technicians to develop new defensive systems. She had been one of the children evacuated from Earth 15 years ago. Now she used her knowledge to protect the beings who had saved her. The first human ships arrived in Kalari space to find the situation worse than expected. Entire Kalari settlements had been abandoned. Trade ships floated dead in space, their crews taken prisoner by the raiders. Captain Jennifer Walsh commanded the human relief fleet. She had been born during the journey from Earth to New Haven. The Kalari were as much a part of her world as humans were. She would not let them suffer alone. "This is Captain Walsh to all Kalari vessels," she broadcast. "We are here to help. Tell us where you need us most." The response came from Captain Vell himself, his voice filled with emotion. "Captain Walsh, your people did not need to come. This is not your fight." "Yes, it is," Jennifer replied without hesitation. "The Kalari are family to us. Family protects family." Over the following months, human ships escorted Kalari traders through dangerous space. Human engineers upgraded Kalari vessels with new technology. Human diplomats negotiated with other species for safe passage through their territory. The Brathan raiders found themselves facing something they had not expected. The peaceful Kalari now had protectors who understood war. Humans had learned violence on dying Earth. They knew how to fight when fighting was necessary. But more importantly, other species began to notice what humanity was doing. The galaxy watched as a young species risked themselves to help their benefactors. It was something most civilizations had never seen before. Back on New Haven, Professor Rachel Turner updated her historical records. She documented every ship that humanity sent to help the Kalari, every engineer who volunteered their time, every resource that was freely given. "Why are we doing this?" she asked Governor Foster during one of their evening meetings. Daniel looked out at the lights of their growing city. Somewhere in the darkness, children were learning Kalari words before they slept. Adults were working late to produce supplies for their alien friends. "Because they saved us when no one else would," he said simply. "Because remembering kindness means nothing if you don't return it when you can." The Memorial of First Contact stood in the center of New Haven's main square. Every day, humans would pause there to read the names of the Kalari who had helped them survive. Children would leave flowers. Adults would whisper thanks in both human and alien languages. The memorial had grown over the years. New plaques were added each time someone remembered another act of Kalari kindness. Stories were carved into stone so they would never be forgotten. The monument had become the heart of the colony, reminding everyone why they were alive. As the sun set over New Haven, Daniel made his evening walk through the city. He saw human families sharing dinner with visiting Kalari traders. He heard children singing songs in both languages. He watched engineers working together on plans for new ships to protect their friends among the stars. The seeds of gratitude had taken root in human soil. Soon they would grow into something that would change the galaxy forever. Fleet Admiral Robert Hayes stood on the bridge of the warship Unity and watched the Vorthak battle fleet approach through space. 20 years had passed since humanity first helped the Kalari against the Brathan pirates. Now they faced a much larger threat. The Vorthak were not pirates. They were conquerors. Their massive ships moved through the galaxy like a plague, taking whatever they wanted and destroying what they could not use. They had already consumed 6 star systems, and now they were moving toward Kalari space. Dr. Michael Santos, Humanities' chief alien specialist, stood beside the admiral studying the enemy ships through the view screen. The Vorthak vessels were ugly things, covered in spikes and weapons. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only: war. "How many ships do they have?" Hayes asked. "Our scouts count over 200 warships," Santos replied. They outgun us 3-1. Hayes nodded grimly. The human fleet had grown since the early colony days, but they were still a young species. They had 30 ships that could fight, and most of those were converted cargo vessels with added weapons. Captain Jennifer Walsh, now commanding her own battleship, opened a communication channel from her vessel, the Gratitude. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Vorthak command ship." "Put it through." The alien face that appeared on screen was frightening to look at. The Vorthak commander had red eyes, sharp teeth, and scars across his dark skin. When he spoke, his voice was harsh and threatening. "Humans, you do not belong in this space. Leave now, or we will destroy your weak ships." Admiral Hayes stepped forward. "This is Admiral Hayes of the Human Defense Fleet. We are here to protect our allies, the Kalari." "We will not leave." The Vorthak commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Allies? The Kalari are prey animals. They exist only to serve stronger species. You are fools to die for them." "The Kalari saved humanity when our world was dying," Hayes said firmly. "We do not abandon those who have helped us." The aliens' expression changed to confusion. "Helped you? What gain did they receive? What territory did they claim?" "Nothing. They helped us because it was right." The Vorthak commander stared at Hayes for a long moment, as if trying to understand words in a foreign language. Finally, he shook his head. "You lie. No species helps another without gain. We will crush your ships and teach the galaxy that weakness brings only death." The communication ended. Within minutes, the Vorthak fleet was moving to attack positions. Director Paul Anderson watched the battle preparations from the command center on New Haven. As head of human military planning, he had spent years studying alien warfare. The Vorthak were experienced fighters who had conquered dozens of worlds. Humanity had never fought a real war, but humans had something the Vorthak did not understand. They had a reason to fight that went beyond conquest or territory. They fought for the memory of kindness received when they had nothing to give in return. The battle began when Vorthak ships opened fire on the human fleet. Their weapons were powerful, designed to destroy enemy vessels quickly and efficiently. Several human ships took heavy damage in the first attack. Captain Walsh maneuvered the Gratitude between the enemy fleet and a group of Kalari civilian transports. Her ship's shields flared as Vorthak energy beams struck them. The hull began to buckle under the assault. "All human ships, this is Walsh," she broadcast. "Remember why we are here. Remember who we fight for." The human fleet responded with tactics the Vorthak had never seen before. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, human ships used speed and cunning. They struck at supply lines and communication relays. They appeared where the enemy least expected them. Captain Tom Mitchell, now commanding the destroyer New Earth, led a squadron of small ships behind enemy lines. They targeted Vorthak supply vessels, cutting off fuel and ammunition to the main fleet. "These humans fight like cowards," the Vorthak commander told his officers. "They do not stand and face us in honorable battle." But the human tactics were working. Vorthak ships began running out of supplies. Their formation started to break apart as commanders tried to protect their logistics ships. General David Kim coordinated the human strategy from his command ship. He had studied every battle in human history, learning from warriors who had fought on dying Earth. The Vorthak were strong, but they were predictable. They expected their enemies to fight the same way they did. "All ships, execute Pattern 7, Kim ordered. The human fleet split into small groups and attacked from multiple directions. Vorthak commanders tried to respond, but their ships were too big and slow to match human maneuvers. For every human vessel they destroyed, they lost 2 of their own. The Kalari watched the battle from their protected positions, amazed by what they saw. The humans were fighting with desperate courage, throwing themselves against a superior enemy to protect their benefactors. Captain Vell, the old Kalari trader who had first brought news of the pirate attacks, spoke to his crew as they watched. "Human ships sacrifice themselves to save Kalari civilians. Do you see this?" he said. "They risk everything for us. not for trade agreements or territory, simply because we helped them when they needed it most. On the fourth day of fighting, the Vorthak began to retreat. Their losses had been too heavy. They could not understand an enemy that fought so fiercely, for others rather than themselves. The Vorthak commander sent one final message to Admiral Hayes. "You have won this battle, human. But why did your people die for aliens who are not even your own species?" Hayes looked tired after days of combat, but his voice was strong. "Because they saved us when we were dying, because gratitude does not have an expiration date, because some things are worth fighting for even when you gain nothing." The alien commander cut the transmission without another word. The Vorthak fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Kalari territory safe. News of the battle spread quickly through the galaxy. Other species heard the story of humans who had fought a superior enemy to protect their benefactors. The tale seemed impossible to most alien civilizations. Dr. Amanda Ross, now a senior diplomat, received the first contact request 3 weeks after the battle ended. It came from the Ixian Empire, a collection of worlds on the outer rim of the galaxy. "We have heard of your victory over the Vorthak," the Ixian ambassador said during the transmission. "We wish to meet with your people. We have a request." Ambassador. Kate Sullivan, now elderly but still sharp, handled the first negotiations with the Ixians. She learned that their empire was facing its own troubles. A plague was killing their crops. Their people were starving. "Why do you come to us?" Sullivan asked. "We are a young species. Surely there are others better equipped to help." The Ixian ambassador hesitated. "We have asked the older civilizations for aid. They demand payment we cannot afford, or they want territories in exchange. But we have heard that humans help others because it is right," Sullivan smiled. It was the same phrase the Kalari had used decades ago when they saved humanity from extinction. Within months, human agricultural experts were traveling to Ixian worlds. They brought new farming techniques and disease-resistant crops. They asked for nothing in return except the friendship of the Ixian people. Professor Rachel Turner, now the head of Human Historical Archives, documented every act of assistance. She created detailed records of how the Ixians had once provided star charts to human explorers, how they had warned human ships about dangerous space phenomena, small kindnesses that most species would have forgotten. But humans remembered everything. As word spread through the galaxy about human generosity, more species began to take notice. The hegemony, a collection of the oldest and most powerful civilizations, watched with growing concern. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia through strength and fear. The idea that a young species could gain influence through kindness was troubling to them. It challenged everything they believed about power and control. Fleet Admiral Hayes received intelligence reports about hegemony movements near human space. Their ships were gathering in large numbers. Their diplomats were asking questions about human motivations and capabilities. "They are trying to understand us," Hayes told his staff during a strategy meeting. "They cannot believe we fight for others without gaining territory or resources." "What do we do if they decide we are a threat?" asked Captain Walsh. Hayes looked out at the stars where human ships now patrolled alongside Kalari and Ixian vessels. The galaxy was starting to change, and humanity was at the center of that change. "We keep doing what we have always done," he said. "We remember who helped us. We help those who need it, and we show the galaxy that there is another way to live among the stars." The seeds of gratitude that had been planted on New Haven were beginning to spread across the galaxy. Soon they would grow into something that would challenge the oldest powers in known space. President Maria Gonzalez stood in the war room of the United Human Colonies, watching holographic displays of ships moving across the galaxy. 50 years had passed since the Kalari first saved humanity. Now the human fleet numbered in the thousands, and their influence reached across dozens of star systems. The hegemony had finally made their move. General David Kim pointed to the tactical display where red markers showed enemy positions. They have blockaded 3 Ixian worlds and are demanding surrender. Their message was clear: submit to hegemony rule or face destruction. Dr. Amanda Cooper, now Director of Human Technological Development, studied the readouts from their latest reconnaissance missions. Their ships are more advanced than anything we have seen before. Some of these vessels are older than our entire civilization. Ambassador Frank Miller, humanity's chief diplomat, read from the official hegemony declaration. They claim that younger species are disrupting the natural order of the galaxy. They say that humans are teaching dangerous ideas about cooperation and mutual aid. President Gonzalez felt anger rise in her chest. The Ixians had been among the first species to help human explorers navigate dangerous space. They had shared star charts and warned human ships about cosmic hazards. When the Ixians faced starvation, from crop disease, humanity had gladly returned the favor. "What are our obligations under the gratitude protocols?" she asked. General Kim consulted his datapad. The gratitude protocols had become the foundation of human foreign policy. Every act of kindness received by humanity was recorded. Every debt of gratitude was tracked and honored. The Ixians provided navigational aid to 17 human exploration missions between 2402 and 2425, Kim read. They warned us about solar flares that saved at least 3 ships and their crews. They shared medical knowledge that helped us treat space sickness. "Then we owe them our protection," Gonzalez said firmly. "Prepare the fleet for combat operations." Within days, human warships were moving toward Ixian space. The fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Every ship carried the names of aliens who had helped humanity carved into their hulls. Soldiers wore patches showing the symbols of species they had sworn to protect. Admiral Brian Taylor commanded the relief force from his flagship Remembrance. He had been born on New Haven and raised on stories of Kalari kindness. To him, protecting grateful allies was as natural as breathing. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Hegemony command ship," his communications officer reported. The being that appeared on screen was ancient beyond human understanding. Its skin was pale and stretched tight over bone. Its eyes were cold and calculating. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of millennia. "I am High Counselor Varix of the Hegemony. You are interfering in matters beyond your comprehension, young species. This is Admiral Taylor of the Human Defense Fleet. We are here to protect our allies. Withdraw your ships from Ixian space," Varix laughed, a sound like wind through a tomb. "Allies? The Ixians are a primitive species suitable only for labor. You risk war with powers that ruled the galaxy before your star was born." "The Ixians helped us when we needed it," Taylor replied. "That makes them our friends. We do not abandon our friends." "Friends?" Varix's expression showed genuine confusion. "You speak of emotional attachments as if they have strategic value. This is why younger species must be controlled. You do not understand the realities of galactic power." The transmission ended. Within hours, Hegemony ships were moving to intercept the human fleet. The battle that followed shocked both sides. Hegemony vessels were massive and powerful, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. But human ships fought with tactics born from desperation and refined through gratitude. Captain Susan Phillips commanded a squadron of destroyers that used new technology developed specifically to fight the Hegemony. Human scientists had been studying ancient ship designs for decades, looking for weaknesses in weapons and armor that had not changed for thousands of years. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons," Phillips told her squadron. "But they have never faced kinetic bombardment at relativistic speeds." Human ships accelerated to incredible velocities and fired simple metal slugs at Hegemony vessels. The ancient shields, designed to deflect lasers and plasma, could not stop solid projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. Hegemony commanders watched in disbelief as their supposedly invincible ships were damaged by primitive kinetic weapons. They had grown complacent over millennia of easy victories against younger species. Dr. Emily Johnson had developed another surprise for the ancient enemy. Her team had created quantum disruptors that interfered with hegemony computer systems. The enemy ships, dependent on technology unchanged for eons, found their systems failing at critical moments. "How are they doing this?" High Counselor Varix demanded as his flagship's weapons went offline. "Their technology should be centuries behind ours." His tactical officer studied the readouts with growing alarm. "They are using innovations we have never seen before. Their ships carry equipment designed specifically to counter our defenses." Impossible. No species develops new technology this quickly. But humans had been preparing for this fight for decades. Every rescued species had shared their knowledge freely. The Ixians had provided metallurgy techniques. The Kalari had taught energy manipulation. Dozens of other grateful civilizations had contributed pieces of the puzzle. The hegemony had expected to face primitive weapons and outdated tactics. Instead, they found themselves fighting the combined knowledge of every species humanity had ever helped. The tide of battle turned when human reinforcements arrived. Ships from the Kalari Confederacy and the Ixian Empire joined the fight alongside human vessels. For the first time in galactic history, an alliance based on gratitude rather than fear was challenging the established order. Admiral Nancy Wright, commanding the heavy cruiser Kindness Repaid, led the final assault on the hegemony command ship. Her vessel had been named for the philosophy that guided human actions across the galaxy. Every act of kindness must be remembered and returned when possible. Hegemony command ship, this is Admiral Wright. Surrender now and withdraw from Ixian space. You are outnumbered and outgunned. High Counselor Varix appeared on screen one final time. His ancient face showed an emotion that few had ever seen from the hegemony: uncertainty. "Your species confuses me, human. You fight for others who can give you nothing. You risk your ships for beings who are not your own kind. Why do you do this?" "Because they helped us when we needed it," Wright replied simply. "Because gratitude is stronger than fear. Because the galaxy is big enough for all of us to live in peace." Varix stared at her for a long moment. "You believe that kindness has power?" "I know it does. Look around you. Every ship in our fleet is here because someone somewhere was kind to a human who needed help. That kindness grows. It spreads. It makes the galaxy a better place." The hegemony fleet withdrew from Ixian space that day. For the first time in recorded history, they had been defeated not by superior force, but by superior motivation. News of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Species that had lived under hegemony rule for centuries began to whisper about the humans who fought for gratitude rather than conquest. President Gonzalez received hundreds of messages from civilizations asking for help, for protection, for friendship. Each one reminded her of species that had aided humanity in some small way during their expansion into the stars. "We are going to need a bigger fleet," she told General Kim as they reviewed the requests for assistance. "Yes, Madam President, but we are also going to need bigger memory banks." Gonzalez smiled. Every act of kindness humanity received was still recorded, cataloged, and remembered. The archives now contained millions of entries spanning dozens of species and hundreds of worlds. Dr. Rachel Turner, now ancient but still sharp, supervised the expansion of the gratitude databases. "We must never lose track of who helped us," she reminded her assistants. "Every favor received is a promise to help in return." The galaxy was changing. The hegemony's grip on power was weakening as more species learned about the human way of conducting interstellar relations. Kindness was becoming a strategic resource more valuable than weapons or territory. But the greatest changes were still to come. Humanity had proven that gratitude could defeat even the oldest powers in the galaxy. Soon, they would show that it could transform entire civilizations. Chancellor William Brooks stood before the Grand Assembly of the Gratitude Alliance and looked out at representatives from 47 different species. 75 years had passed since the Kalari first saved humanity from extinction. Now, their philosophy of remembered kindness had spread across half the galaxy. Dr. Susan Phillips, now the eldest living human diplomat, sat in the place of honor reserved for the species that had started it all. At 130 years old, she had lived through humanity's entire journey from refugees to galactic leaders. "Today we welcome the Zenthari Republic as our newest member," Brooks announced. The assembly erupted in cheers and musical sounds from dozens of different species. The Zenthari ambassador, a being with crystalline skin that reflected light in beautiful patterns, rose to speak. "The Meldorian Consortium shared their agricultural technology with us during our Great Famine 50 years ago. The Meldorians learned kindness from the Ixians, who learned it from the humans. Today, we join this alliance to honor that chain of gratitude." Admiral Brian Taylor, now head of Alliance Defense Forces, watched the ceremony from the military observation deck. The network of gratitude had grown beyond anything humanity had imagined. Each species that joined the alliance brought their own stories of kindness received and debts to be honored. The hegemony had not been idle during these years. Their ancient empire was crumbling as member species defected to the alliance, but they had not given up their desire to rule the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Jennifer Walsh, commanding the Alliance Border Patrol, received the first reports of hegemony, movement toward Alliance space. Their ships were gathering in unprecedented numbers, preparing for what looked like a final desperate attack. "How many ships are they bringing?" Chancellor Brooks asked during the emergency session of the Alliance. Council. "Our scouts count over 10,000 vessels," Walsh replied. "They are pulling ships from across their remaining territory. This appears to be everything they have left." The number was staggering. Even with 47 member species, the Alliance could field perhaps 8,000 ships. The hegemony still had the advantage in raw firepower. Dr. Emily Johnson, now head of Alliance Research, had been working on new technologies inspired by the combined knowledge of all member species. "We have completed the universal translation protocol," she announced. "Every ship in our fleet can now communicate instantly with every other ship, regardless of species or language." Admiral Nancy Wright, veteran of dozens of battles against hegemony forces, understood the significance immediately. "Perfect coordination across all fleet elements. We can fight as one unified force instead of separate species working together." Philosopher Nancy Wright, no relation to the Admiral but sharing a similar view of galactic relations, had been studying the deeper implications of the gratitude network. "The hegemony cannot understand what we have become," she said. "They see individual species allied for mutual benefit. They do not see the emotional bonds that hold us together." The final battle began when hegemony forces attacked the Kalari homeworld. It was a deliberately symbolic target, chosen to strike at the species that had started humanity's journey toward galactic transformation. High Counselor Varix, still alive, after centuries of rule, led the hegemony fleet personally. He broadcast a message to the Alliance forces as they moved to intercept. "People of the Alliance," his ancient voice echoed across space. "You have been deceived by human emotionalism. Order must be restored to the galaxy. Surrender now and return to your proper places in the cosmic hierarchy." Chancellor Brooks responded from the Alliance Command Ship Memorial. The vessel had been built using technology from every member species and carried the names of every being who had ever helped, humanity carved into its hull. "High Counselor Varix, the galaxy has moved beyond your old ways. We offer you the chance to join us in building something better than empire, something based on cooperation instead of domination." Varix's laugh was cold and bitter. "Cooperation is weakness. Only strength matters in the universe. Today we will prove this truth by destroying your pathetic alliance." The battle that followed was unlike any conflict in galactic history. Alliance ships fought with perfect coordination, each species contributing their unique strengths to the overall strategy. Kalari vessels provided healing support. Ixian ships used their advanced sensors for targeting. Human vessels served as mobile command centers coordinating the entire effort. Captain Tom Mitchell, now commanding a massive Alliance dreadnought, watched as hegemony ships struggled to counter their coordinated attacks. "They are fighting us the same way they have fought for millennia," he reported. "Ship against ship, species against species. They cannot adapt to our unified tactics." The hegemony had another weakness they did not recognize. Their empire was held together by fear and force. When Alliance ships disabled hegemony vessels instead of destroying them, and when Alliance medical ships rushed to help wounded hegemony crews, it created confusion in enemy ranks. Many hegemony species had joined. The empire through conquest, not choice. Seeing Alliance forces show mercy to defeated enemies reminded them of what galactic civilization could be like without constant fear. Dr. Michael Santos, now ancient but still serving as humanity's chief alien specialist, monitored communications from hegemony ships. "We are detecting massive defections," he reported. "Entire squadrons are refusing to fight. Some are requesting to join the Alliance." High Counselor Varix watched his empire dissolve around him as ship after ship abandoned. The battle. Species that had served the hegemony for centuries were laying down their weapons and asking for Alliance protection. "This is impossible," he told his remaining officers. "Fear is the strongest force in the universe. How can kindness defeat it?" His tactical officer, a member of a species conquered by the hegemony long ago, spoke quietly. "Perhaps, High Counselor, fear was never as strong as we believed." The hegemony command ship found itself alone as the last of its allies surrendered or fled. Alliance vessels surrounded the ancient vessel, but they did not fire. Chancellor Brooks opened a communication channel. "High Counselor Varix, your empire is finished, but you are not. The Alliance offers you the same thing we offer everyone, a chance to be part of something better." Varix appeared on screen, looking older and more frail than ever before. The weight of millennia seemed to press down on his shoulders. "You would welcome us after all we have done." "The Alliance is built on gratitude and forgiveness," Brooks replied. "Every species has done things they regret. What matters is what we choose to do now." For long minutes, the ancient ruler was silent. Around him, his bridge crew waited to see if their civilization would end in destruction or transformation. Finally, Varix spoke. "I do not understand your ways, human, but I am tired of ruling through fear. If your Alliance will have us, the hegemony surrenders." The formal end of the hegemony marked the beginning of a new era. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years began working together. Ancient grudges were set aside in favor of building a better future. Director Linda Roberts took charge of the massive rehabilitation project. Former hegemony worlds needed help transitioning from authoritarian rule to Alliance cooperation. It was the largest undertaking in galactic history. "How do we teach entire civilizations to trust instead of fear?" she asked Dr. Amanda Cooper. During one of their planning sessions, Cooper, now over 100 years old but still sharp, smiled. "The same way the Kalari taught us, one act of kindness at a time." Alliance ships began arriving at former hegemony worlds carrying not weapons, but supplies. Engineers to repair damaged infrastructure, doctors to treat the sick, teachers to share new ways of thinking about interspecies relations. Captain Nathan Price, leading the Alliance Exploration Corps, pushed into the most dangerous regions of former hegemony space, places where lawlessness had taken hold after the Empire's collapse. His ships carried humanitarian supplies and offers of Alliance membership to any species willing to embrace cooperation. The transformation was not always easy. Some worlds resisted. Alliance help suspicious after centuries of hegemony rule. Others struggled to understand concepts like voluntary cooperation and mutual aid, but slowly, steadily, the network of gratitude continued to grow. Each world that joined the alliance brought new perspectives and new stories of kindness received and returned. The database of grateful relationships now spanned millions of entries across hundreds of species. Professor Rachel Turner's successors continued her work of documenting every act of kindness. The Memorial Archives had grown into the largest database in galactic history, tracking the complex web of gratitude that held Alliance civilization together. As Chancellor Brooks looked out at the transformed galaxy, he reflected on humanity's long journey from dying refugees to galactic leaders. It had all started with one simple act: the Kalari deciding to help strangers in need. That single moment of compassion had grown into something that reshaped the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. Fear and domination had given way to cooperation and mutual support. But even greater changes lay ahead. The Alliance was preparing for its most ambitious project yet, expanding beyond their own galaxy to carry the message of gratitude to civilizations among distant stars. Elder statesman Charles Morgan walked slowly through the Memorial Gardens on Unity Station, the new capital of the Galactic Alliance. At 140 years old, he was one of the last humans who remembered Earth before it died. Today marked exactly 100 years since the Kalari had saved humanity from extinction. The gardens were filled with plants from every world in the Alliance. Kalari flowering vines grew alongside Earth roses. Ixian crystal trees sparkled next to Zenthari singing flowers that filled the air with gentle music. It was a living symbol of how different species could grow together in harmony. Director Linda Roberts found him sitting on a bench near the memorial wall, where the names of every being who had ever helped humanity were carved in letters of light. She was elderly now, too, but her eyes still held the determination that had rebuilt half the galaxy. "Charles, the ceremony is about to begin," she said gently. "They are waiting for you." Charles smiled and stood with some effort. As the last survivor of Earth's evacuation, he had been chosen to speak at the Centennial Gratitude Ceremony. Representatives from over 300 species had come to Unity Station for this moment. The Grand Assembly Hall could hold 50,000 beings, and today every seat was filled. Charles looked out at the incredible diversity before him. Beings of crystal and metal, gas and energy, forms that defied human understanding but all united by the simple principle of remembered kindness. 100 years ago, Charles began, his voice carried to every corner of the hall by translation systems that worked in over 1,000 languages. My people were dying. Our world was poisoned. Our ships were few. We had nothing to offer anyone. He paused, remembering that desperate time when humanity faced extinction. Then the Kalari came. They could have ignored us. They could have passed by and left us to die in the cold of space. But they stopped. They helped. They asked for nothing in return. In the front row, Captain Vell sat with the original Kalari delegation. They had returned to see what their single act of kindness had grown into. Their blue skin seemed to glow with emotion as they listened to the human elder. Today, 300 species live in peace because of what began that day, Charles continued. Not because of conquest or force, but because someone decided to help strangers in need. Dr. Emily Johnson, now the Alliance's head of consciousness research, had made a breakthrough that seemed impossible. Using technology shared by dozens of species, she had found a way to preserve the memories and experiences of dying beings in quantum storage systems. Charles has volunteered to be the first subject, she had told the Alliance Council. His memories of Earth and the early days with the Kalari will be preserved forever. The technology meant that the experiences of gratitude could literally be passed down through the generations. Future beings would be able to feel what it was like to be saved by strangers who asked for nothing in return. After the ceremony, Charles made his way to the observation deck where he could see the bustling activity of Unity Station. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went, carrying supplies to developing civilizations, bringing relief to disaster zones, or simply transporting beings who wanted to learn from other species. Captain Nathan Price approached him, carrying a data pad filled with reports from the Outer Rim. Price commanded the Alliance exploration forces that were pushing into the most distant regions of their galaxy. Elder Morgan, I wanted you to know about our latest discoveries, Price said. We have found 17 new civilizations in the past year. All of them have asked to join the Alliance after learning about our principles. Charles smiled. The network of gratitude was still growing, even after a century. Any interesting stories? He asked. The ethereal collective is fascinating, Price replied. They are beings of pure energy who have existed for millions of years. They say they have never seen anything like our alliance. The idea that physical species can cooperate so completely amazes them. What about the others? The builders are artificial intelligences created by a species that went extinct eons ago. They have been alone for so long that they had forgotten what cooperation looks like. The machine empire consists of robots who achieved consciousness and have been searching for purpose ever since. Each new species brought their own perspectives and abilities to the Alliance. The ethereal collective could manipulate energy in ways that seemed magical. The builders could construct megastructures in space. The machine empire had perfect memory systems that could store infinite amounts of data. But they all shared the same foundation. They had been helped by someone else, and they wanted to return that kindness to the galaxy. Ambassador Kate Sullivan, now preserved in a cybernetic body that allowed her consciousness to continue beyond biological death, supervised the integration of new species into Alliance society. Her centuries of experience with interspecies relations made her invaluable in teaching newcomers about gratitude-based civilization. The hardest part, she told her assistants, is helping them understand that we really do not want anything in return for our help. Most species have never encountered genuine altruism before. The Alliance had also begun its most ambitious project ever, preparing for intergalactic exploration. Scientists from dozens of species were working together to develop ships capable of crossing the vast emptiness between galaxies. Professor Michael Santos, his consciousness now housed in an android body, led the theoretical research team. We want to carry the message of gratitude to civilizations in other galaxies, he explained to the Alliance Council. Imagine what we could accomplish if this philosophy spread beyond our own cosmic neighborhood. The Andromeda Project, as it came to be known, represented the ultimate expression of human gratitude. Humanity had been saved by aliens from their own galaxy. Now they wanted to share that salvation with beings they had never met in places they had never seen. Dr. Patricia Wells, the original human historian who had insisted on documenting Kalari kindness, had died decades ago. But her successors continued, her work on an unimaginable scale. The memorial archives now contained the complete history of every act of kindness performed by any Alliance species. Young beings from across the galaxy came to study these records. They learned about the chains of gratitude that connected all Alliance civilizations, how the Kalari had saved humans, who had protected the Ixians, who had helped the Zenthari, who had assisted the Builders, and on in an endless web of remembered kindness. Charles Morgan made one final visit to the Kalari memorial ship that was permanently docked at Unity Station. The vessel had been converted into a museum where visitors could experience what first contact had been like from both human and Kalari perspectives. Captain Vell met him there, his ancient features showing the same gentle wisdom that had characterized the Kalari for centuries. "Do you ever regret stopping to help us?" Charles asked. Vell tilted his head in the way his people did when considering deep questions. How could we regret an action that brought so much good to the galaxy? Your species has taught us that kindness grows when it is shared. The Alliance is planning to send ships to other galaxies, Charles said, to share what you started with civilizations we have never met. This pleases us greatly, Vel replied. Perhaps someday all the galaxies will be connected by bonds of gratitude instead of divided by fear and suspicion. Charles nodded, thinking about the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. From refugees fleeing a dying world to explorers preparing to carry hope to distant galaxies, humanity had traveled further than anyone could have imagined. As he looked out at the stars through the museum's transparent walls, Charles could see Alliance ships preparing for their next missions. Some were carrying relief supplies to worlds, recovering from natural disasters. Others were loaded with teachers and healers heading to newly contacted civilizations. A few were the prototype intergalactic vessels that would soon attempt the journey to Andromeda. The galaxy had been transformed by a simple idea. Remember who helps you and help others when you can. What had started as one alien species showing mercy to dying refugees had grown into a civilization spanning hundreds of worlds and countless species. But the greatest transformation was not in the size of the Alliance or the number of species it contained. The greatest change was in how beings thought about each other. Fear and domination had given way to cooperation and mutual support. Competition had been replaced by collaboration. Charles thought about all the humans who had lived and died since. The Kalari first appeared in Earth's dying skies. Each generation had carried forward the memory of that first act of kindness. Each had found new ways to express gratitude and help others in need. Now the Alliance stood ready to carry that message beyond their own galaxy. Ships were being built that could cross the vast emptiness between star clusters. Crews were being trained for journeys that would take millennia. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, other civilizations waited unknowingly for the arrival of beings who had learned that the strongest force in the universe was not gravity or electromagnetism, but gratitude freely given and joyfully returned. The Kalari had saved humanity from extinction. Humanity had transformed the galaxy. Now the galaxy itself was preparing to transform the universe. Charles Morgan closed his eyes and remembered the first time he had seen Kalari ships descending through Earth's poisoned atmosphere. He had been just a child then, frightened and hopeless. Now he was an elder statesman in a galactic civilization, built on the foundation of that moment. The dying world had become countless living worlds. The refugees had become the guardians of peace. The grateful had become the teachers of gratitude. And in the space between the stars, new adventures waited for those who had learned that helping others was the greatest power in the universe.